Good evening, everybody. Um, we are in day number 4. I always lose track for a second, but we're in day number 4 of Holy Week. And I hope you all are enjoying this as much as I am so far. I'm actually down here at the church. Just got a little bit of work done for movie night. Hope to get to see most of you out here Friday. But without further ado, we're going to jump into day number 4, Judas's betrayal. So far, I always like to recap in the beginning. We've had the triumphal entry, and which led into the cursing of the fig tree and cleansing of the temple, and then the controversy and teachings. And now we're going to talk about Judas's betrayal. And if you'll notice on your worksheet, there's a focus question on this day. It'll be under Wednesday, April 5, AD 30. And it's focus question number 2 for the week. And it's, since this day, let me hold up a second. I made a typo in here. I know, surprise. But it should just say, since this day doesn't show, not, which I think I fixed it on the ones that I printed off here. So if you have a printed version directly from the church, then it should be good. But I didn't fix it on the email because I didn't notice that until after I emailed it. But it's whatever. I'm Mr. Typo. But so since this day doesn't show any record of activity of Jesus, what does the lesson say the day is known as? And again, for these ones, now when we get into our normal lesson for the week, we'll have more discussion and whatnot. It won't be as much discussion back and forth, but more of what answers we was kind of looking for. But for these, I'm just going to show you where it's at, and unless you've already done it prior to this, in which case kudos to you. But they considered it Silent Wednesday, so the answer is Silent Wednesday, and you'll find it on page 59 on the bottom right-hand corner. So Silent Wednesday, because there wasn't any record of activity of what Jesus had done up until the Last Supper. So, but let's go ahead and read our study book first. So bottom of page 59, bottom right corner, Wednesday, April 5th, AD 30. Judas's betrayal. The Gospels do not record any activity by Jesus on that day, which is the reason the day is called Silent Wednesday. Judas likely used this opportunity to venture into Jerusalem to meet with the chief priests to negotiate handing Jesus over to them. We're going to read a little bit about that. The religious leaders had looked for this opening for a long time. Jesus' popularity with the crowds had made seizing him virtually impossible up to this point. Judas offered them the possibility of arresting him without the presence of the crowds. Now, this is Judas Iscariot, or Iscariot. If somebody can tell me how to pronounce that, you get bonus points. I don't know what yet, maybe a Diet Coke. How about that? But anyways, so we're going to learn about what led up to Judas's betrayal, how Jesus predicted it, and we go into a little bit of the Last Supper. So a lot of well, not a lot, but a decent amount of scripture we're going to read today. And if you look on your worksheet, I have it all marked all over the place, but basically we're going to start from Matthew and work back through John. We're going to hit each gospel. This is how my brain works when I'm making these. Sometimes I'm like, oh, let's put this in there, then this, and then this. And next thing you know, I'm like 5 different places that are out of order. But just hang in there. There's a method to the madness here. But we're going to start in Matthew. So Matthew chapter 26, verses 14 through 16, and then we're going to hit 20 through 25. So Matthew 26, again, I'm not going to fly through these, but I'm going to try and move along a little bit because they all are kind of the same, but as always, they're different perspectives. Some have different information. Excuse me. But so, as always, just pause the video if you need some extra time getting to where we're at. So, Matthew 26, 14 through 16, 20 through 25. So, 14 through 16 reads, and mine's titled Judas's Bargain. Then one of the 12, named Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What are you willing to give me to betray him to you?" And they weighed out 30 pieces of silver to him. From then on, he began looking for a good opportunity to betray Jesus. So that was just a real quick, short introduction to the betrayal. We're going to jump over to verses, same chapter, but we're going to jump over to the verses 20 through 25. And this is the last Passover, or the Last Supper. And it reads, "Now when evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12 disciples. As they were eating, he said, 'Truly I say to you that one of you will betray me.' Being deeply grieved, they each one began to say to him, 'Surely not I, Lord.' And he answered, 'He who dipped his hand with me in the bowl is the one who will betray me. The Son of Man is to go, just as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born.' And Judas, who was betraying him, said, 'Surely it is not I, Rabbi.' Jesus said to him, 'You have said it yourself.'" So, let's go to Luke, and we will see. Not a lot to break down in these, so we'll just kind of read them. I mean, maybe a little bit, but I mean, it's pretty cut and dry on this one. We're just speaking of the religious leaders finally had an opportunity to catch Jesus up. Not really catch him up, but to catch him alone, where they didn't have the crowds to, fight back or influence one way or another. It's just plain old. They had an opportunity to draw him out to a place secluded and take him in. So it's pretty cut and dry. Judas, he was led by the spirit of Satan to do all these things, and we'll read a little bit about that. So, but not a lot to break down. So let's just jump right over to Mark. We'll jump to Mark. I really need to start putting these in order. But Mark 14, so book of Mark, chapter 14. We're going to start in verses 1 through 2, then go to 10 through 11, and 17 through 21. So 1 through 2 reads, "Now the Passover and unleavened bread were 2 days away, and the chief priests and the scribes were seeking how to seize him by stealth and kill him. For they were saying, 'Not during the festival, otherwise there might be a riot of the people.'" So again, this is a different take on the beginnings of the betrayal. But that right there is why they wanted to have an inside person, and they were willing to pay good money for an inside person, because they understood what he meant to the people. I don't think the people truly knew or understood, obviously, what they were witnessing and who he was. But it was more of, they had a respect for who he was and who they thought he was. Because I won't say as we all know, but as some of us know, they thought that he was more of a political leader. I always use the word warlord. I mean, that's not the true definition, but they all had this idea that he was coming to rescue them from Rome by saving them with military action. So, and having said that, that was kind of why they knew not, and not only that, but his teachings had such influence that they just knew what would happen if it was out in the open. So that was real quick. Just wanted to hit on verses 1 through 2. Now we're going to jump into the same chapter, but we're going to go to verses 10 through 11. So 10 through 11 say, "Then Judas Iscariot, I'm going to say Iscariot, who was one of the 12, went off to the chief priests in order to betray him to them. They were glad when they heard this and promised to give him money. And he began seeking how to betray him at an opportune time. So again, that was the same account we read in Matthew, just a little bit of a different account. Now, we are going to lastly hit the same chapter, but verses 17 through 21. When it was evening, he came with the 12. As they were reclining at the table and eating, Jesus said, "Truly I say to you that one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." They began to be grieved and to say to him one by one, "Surely not I." And he said to them, "It is one of the 12, one who dips with me in the bowl. For the Son of Man is to go just as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born." So again, very similar verses to Matthew, but as I said in I think it was day 1 or 2, it's important to get the account of each one, not to make it confusing or to mix things up. But it's just like any other. There was a Christian movie that God's Not Dead 2, I believe it was. It talks on something like this. It's if you was to do an investigation, you want to get multiple accounts from different people, and as we see in these, most of those accounts from 4 totally different disciples was very accurate, and you don't want. I believe the movie speaks on how you don't want, because in the movie it had like FBI, an actual FBI investigators that were talking on this subject, is you don't want each story to be the exact same word for word, because then it sounds made up. Each of these accounts are similar, but they have their differences. So although it kind of seems like we're just repeating, understand that there's a process to it, because it's important to read each gospel and see what each one had to say about it. Obviously, those two are pretty similar. So let's jump over to Luke chapter 22, 1 through 6. Just a quick 6 verses in Luke chapter 22. And they read, "Now the feast of unleavened bread, which is called the Passover, was approaching. The chief priests and the scribes were seeking how they might put him to death, for they were afraid of the people. And Satan entered into Judas." This is where this is what I was saying, how the different accounts. Now we're seeing where Luke was telling us that Satan had entered into Judas, who was called Iscariot, belonging to the number of the 12. And he went away and discussed with the chief priests and officers how he might betray him to them. They were glad and agreed to give him money. So he consented and began seeking a good opportunity to betray him to them apart from the crowd. So I wanted to hit those verses real quick. Wasn't a whole lot in there we discussed, except for the important note that Satan had entered into Judas. And we're going to read next in the book of John where Jesus actually confronted Satan through him. So let's go to our last book, which is John. We're going to be in chapter 13, 1 through 4, and then 21 through 30. So John 13, 1 through 4 first says, this is titled the Lord's Supper. I think earlier I said the Last Supper. Last Supper, Lord's Supper, you get it. So, now before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that his hour had come, that he would depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, the devil, having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come forth from God and was going back to God, got up from supper and laid aside his garments, and taking a towel, he girded himself. So I wanted to hit that again because that was a little bit more. I really like the book of John because the book of John really takes things the important things into depth. So we're going to jump over to 21 through 30. So still chapter 13, but 21 through 30. So 21 through 30, it reads, and of course mine's titled, Jesus Predicts His Betrayal. When Jesus had said this, he became troubled in spirit and testified and said, "Truly, truly, I say to you, that one of you will betray me." The disciples began looking at one another, at a loss to know of which one he was speaking. There was reclining on Jesus' bosom one of his disciples, whom Jesus loved. So Simon Peter gestured to him and said to him, "Tell us who it is of whom he is speaking." He, leaning back thus on Jesus' bosom, said to him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus then answered, "That is the one for whom I shall dip the morsel and give it to him." So when he had dipped the morsel, he took and gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. After the morsel, Satan then entered into him. Wherefore Jesus said to him, "What you do, do quickly." Now one of those reclining at the table knew for what purpose he had said this to him. For some were supposing, let me back up. I think I said that wrong. So starting in verse 28. Now no one of those reclining at the table knew for what purpose he had said this to him. For some were supposing because Judas had the money box, which we'll read in another, we won't read, but if you look in another chapter, I believe it is in John, Judas had been stealing money from that money box. That Jesus was saying to him, "Buy the things we have need of for the feast, or else that he should give something to the poor." So after receiving the morsel, he went out immediately, and it was night. So that ended for Book of John. Now, the important thing to see here is, if we look in verse 27, and it says, Satan then entered into him. Therefore, Jesus said to him, "What you do, do quickly." I know he wasn't speaking to Judas per se, although it looked like it, and I'm sure he was in a way, but really he was talking to Satan that had entered into him. He said, "What you do, do quickly." He knew exactly who entered into him. He knew exactly who was betraying him, why, where, when, the cost. I mean, he knew everything. That's why when it says, it didn't say Satan entered into him and then an hour later. No, the second that Satan entered into him, he looked at him and said, "What you do, do quickly." So that's important because it shows that Jesus knew exactly what was getting ready to happen, how it was going to happen, who was going to betray him. He knew all of this. Nothing was by surprise. But I believe that is it for the scripture read. So tomorrow we are going to be getting into the washing of the feet and the moments in the Garden of Gethsemane. So I hope you guys like today. As this goes on, we're going to start doing some new things. I'm going to try and change up the background a little bit. I know you guys have been staring at Easter eggs painted back here forever. I might make one in the sanctuary standing up, or just try and break up the monotony of things. Or I was speaking with somebody today, Nigel today, that I have these Bible trivia cards at home. I may bring them and maybe do some Bible trivia. And if you guys get it's about people in the Bible. There's hints on them, but instead of giving you guys a hint, I'm just going to give you the first clue, I guess, and see if you can figure it out, and then maybe there'd be a reward. I don't know what. I mean, who knows? I got all kinds of ideas. So we'll start doing new things, getting through the week, because once this week's over, this daily thing for the Sunday school will kind of be over. Although I am thinking on especially for our extended family, or ones you have to miss, doing these weekly still. But this was just a beginning for a ministry to come. I've been working on things. I've actually been working on here very soon a podcast where we're going to be combating the falseness that is being spread through the world today. And I'm not saying I'm the only one that's fighting it, but there's needs to be more God-fearing, knowledgeable, and people, just men who are surrendered to the Lord, that are fighting what's out in this world today with this right here. This the best weapon that we have to do it with, and the true word, nothing that's been altered or something that we want to make it. So, but we're going to be getting into that very soon. There's other things. I've got a lot to learn with this stuff, but there's a lot of other things we're going to be getting into, which leads me to another point, especially for my Sunday school group, and of course anybody. If you want to go to my YouTube channel that I now have, this is a cool way of how God works. This was never planned like this. This was supposed to just be something between, me and you, or Jonathan, us and you, and then, in the way God works, even though it was aggravating, we worked through it, and now it's blossomed into this, and it's almost like kickstarting before I was ever ready to even go public with all this. So I say that to say this: if you want to go on my YouTube channel and subscribe to me, as far as I know, it don't cost anything. Just subscribe to me, and then that's going to grow it, get more eyeballs on it, to where this starts slowly spreading out, and then once I'm ready to hit the ground with everything else, we'll already have a good following for it. And then obviously, eventually, however it works, I think YouTube starts to pay you, and all that money is going to go into the podcast ministry, Bible ministry, and I'm still working on a search and rescue company that's hopefully within the next few months will at least get the groundwork started. So a lot of stuff coming. So I guess what I'm saying in that is, help me out by subscribing to the channel, or don't, and just keep doing what we're doing. But I just thought I'd throw it out there as this grows. So we will see you back tomorrow. Hopefully I can get this out a little earlier tomorrow. I had an eye doctor appointment and all kinds of stuff, so I got a little late. So we will see you tomorrow. We got quite a bit of scripture to get through tomorrow, so I'll try and not talk as much and not blow through it. You get what I'm saying. All right. Y'all have a nice evening. God bless you all.